Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Arsenal Fan Circle. And you do not need to adjust your sex. I am your host this evening, myself, Stan the Man, who I know some of you have been around these parts before. And next to me is our regular host, Ray. How are you?
I'm good, Stan. Happy New Year to you. I don't think I've talked to you since New Year's, but hope everybody out there is doing well. And I'm gonna be led by you tonight. I'm
It's going to be
excited.
interesting to hear some of your views this evening, Ray, instead of you asking the questions. So, how was your Christmas and New Year?
You know, Christmas, what we're all having, Christmas and New Year's is in name only right now. It's not what we've come to know and love.
No.
But hopefully, next Christmas we can do what we used to do in the past. Yeah.
Okay, and underneath Ray, we have all the way from Norway, Sam. How are you, mate? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to yourself, Stan, and everyone else. Thanks for having me on, guys. Norway. Yeah, well, it's cold here at the moment. I can tell you that we finally got some cold weather. It took a while. We were quite mild until about a couple of weeks ago. So now we're cold. We're about -7, -8, and we've got some snow as well. So it's starting to look a bit like Norway finally. But yeah, apart from that, global warming doing its thing, you know.
And how was your Christmas and New Year over there? Was it a bit different?
Yeah, I mean, because of all the, lockdown and everything we've had over here as well, because of the new mutated virus I've been really scared about and all that. So we went into a new lockdown just before Christmas and, messed up my whole Christmas as well. Obviously, used to go back to the UK. They cancelled because of the mutation coming, the so-called source coming from the UK. They cancelled all flights to and from the UK and everything. Not that I'd booked a flight anyway, but I wouldn't have been able to go back to the UK where I normally go back to my family in London and have Christmas with them. But this year I was unfortunately by myself and had to do a bit of Christmas via Skype, as it were.
Okay. And below me, we've got our special guest, Ian Wright. How are you? It's Gary. Don't waste the tweet. Gary, Happy New Year to you, mate. How was yours?
Happy New Year.
How was it?
It was good. It was relaxing. I mean, I didn't work for like 12 days, so that was nice. So I just no alarm clock. Wake up when I want, go to sleep when I want. So, and see the family. All the kids were. I guess my one daughter, she's out in New York. She came down and we hung out. So all the family was together. So that was good.
Okay. Well, I think we should start off with, I know you guys had a couple of things that were sent to me, some subjects and some topics that you wanted to bring up for tonight's show. But before we go to those, I think the Assemble's just joined us. Good evening, mate. So before we go to those questions, there's a couple of things that have been going around in the news over the last couple of days. And I think the big news, well, the one that's jumped out to me the most is the story that our highest paid footballer may actually be off sooner rather than later. Now, anybody that knows me or anybody that will give me half an hour knows exactly what my feelings are on Mesut Ozil. So as I'm the host tonight, and I don't want to get Ray's channel striked by YouTube, I'm not going to say anything on the subject. And I'm going to go round and I'm going to listen to what the three of you feel on this on this subject. There's stories about Fenerbahce being linked. In fact, I actually read one story that a deal had already been done for 3.5 years. There's also stories as well about DC United. So I'm not going to say anything because everybody knows how I feel about Mesut Ozil, but I might sort of do something a bit visually to show you how I'm feeling about it. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do, right? We're going to start with Ray. So, Ray, tell me about what your feelings are about what you've been reading about Mesut Ozil perhaps leaving early.
Yeah, look, I thought it'd be a unique idea to have Stan host the show. A little bit of a different viewpoint, a little bit of a different skew to the show. And definitely, I think Stan will be able to close out the show a lot quicker than I do. Everybody knows that, right? I'm good with the long outros. And in asking Stan to come on and be the host tonight, I wasn't actually 100% sure that it was not motivated by Ozil. by the news about Ozil. We all know how Stan feels. We all know how Stan feels is having a extended New Year's. You're having an extended New Year's, Stan, party.
It's the Ozil out party.
I know, exactly.
It's the Ozil out party. But to get down to the nitty gritty, I think Mesut Ozil, correct me if I'm wrong, he came here in 2013, so he's been with the club 7 years. And, we were all gassed. I don't know what the other three of you were thinking, but when Arsene Wenger, and we sort of credited Arsene Wenger with the natural sliding transfers that happened on the final day. Like, so many things happened. I know there was a big Spurs tint to it. That Gareth Bale went to Real Madrid that summer, and then Madrid had to offload Ozil. And we were gassed because we got Ozil at almost the last second on that last day of the window. And, as Arsenal fans,
was there? There was no rumours, there were no links, there was no, there were no whispers about it happening at all. I do remember, though, I think Arsene Wenger, when he had his post-match interview after the game before he came in, he did say that he did say something about, you never know, they may be a surprise, and he gave
that little Gallic. He had that little Gallic French smile, Stan, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like he knew something the whole world didn't know.
Yeah.
And it was big news. 42 million, and Arsenal fans, we're expecting the long drought to end in terms of trophies. Now that was to happen. We did end the drought, but I want to say in Ozil's tenure, 7 years of the club, yielding 4 FA Cups. While that's all good, well and good, we really probably wanted a little bit more from Mesut Ozil.
Let me ask you, what's your opinion on Mesut Ozil, the football player, for the time that he's been at Arsenal? How would you describe it?
At first, he had the drive, he had the ambition to do well. The first couple of seasons, and I know my hair is a little bit more scathing, and maybe Stan is a little bit more scathing about Ozil, but first 2 or 3 seasons, really, really good. And I've been developing this theory that really Arsene Wenger was his biggest fan. Arsene Wenger was his biggest fan, but in a funny way, Arsene Wenger didn't really help Ozil and the legacy of Ozil, because in that faded year of 2015, 2016, I believe, is when Leicester went on to win the league. Arsene Wenger did not go out and strengthen the club to help Ozil in any way, shape, or form. We only got Peter Cech in, £10 million goalkeeper. So I feel after that season, the distress of losing that title run against Leicester, you got to give props to Leicester. They were unbreakable. We broke them we broke their hearts on Valentine's Day with that Welbeck header. Ozil assisted, and we should have gone on really to win the title at that point in time. But Leicester were unstoppable. Claudio Ranieri was keeping everything very, very calm and collected and taking it literally one game at a time. And Leicester went on to win the league. From then on, we got Alexis Sanchez. We had Alexis Sanchez, I think, in that season. We actually beat Leicester twice in that season. But we were not consistent enough with Giroud at the time. And, you can big up Ozil, and he did have a lot of assists that season, but he didn't have the players behind him. And I think he really down tools after that. You would go to away games, up north especially, Ozil would disappear. And, Arsene Wenger was his biggest supporter, but in many ways didn't help the legacy of Ozil. And, I'll leave some time for everyone else now to say something.
Sam, seeing what teams have been reportedly available. All right, Tone, you're just in time for the Ozil party. So, as you can see. Sam, so of the teams that have been discussed, Fenerbahce, DC United, what's your thoughts? What do you think would be the better one for just want to say as well, the assembled mentions in the chat, he says, I heard about DC in the summer. Well, apparently the stumbling block was his brand coffee. He wanted to sell it from the stadium. Well, to tack on from that, the assembled, I was reading, I think it was yesterday or this morning, that DC United have basically said to Mesut Ozil, now look, forget that we're the second worst team in our conference, because they are. You can sell your coffee from the stadium, and you can be the face of the team with your M10 brand. So that might be something that sways Ozil. But Sam, of what's the two teams that have sort of been mentioned, what's your thoughts?
I think the thing is with Fenerbahce and with DC United, they both sort of make sense for him because as the next step, because DC United, because he's a brand, right? And the MLS is a brand, they can match up, like you're saying, with all his off the field stuff, all his like coffee and whatever brands he's got going, on the side, he can match all that up with the MLS and American culture and all that. I mean, it seems like a very good next step for him from a commercial perspective if he wants to go that way, where football takes a bit of a back seat and he can sort of put all his brands and commercial aspects, in the foreground.
Isn't there an emotional tie at Fenerbahce for him?
And then I was just going to say, but then on the other hand, Fenerbahce also makes a lot of sense because he's a god in Turkey. The guy is actually a god. So you go back to your home country as a god. That's a different thing, right?
His grandfather played for Fenerbahce as well. And
also he's close friends with the president, Erdogan, and he's got very, very many high, rich, important, influential Turkish people, close friends. So he can go back to Turkey as a god, and you can just imagine everything he can get out of that lifestyle and being there and everything. And at the same time, Fenerbahce is better football as well. I mean, Turkish football is a lot better than the MLS. I think we can safely say that, even though it's not very high up in terms of European football. But Fenerbahce, Galatasaray, Besiktas, they're better teams than a lot of the teams in the MLS. So, both, as I'm saying, both teams can make a lot of sense. But I saw the other day, the reason I thought it was a done deal and everything's been going that way is I actually saw tweets from that were spread around on the net that were tweets from the president of Fenerbahce himself, actually tweeting, yes, we have a deal with Ozil. There's just the last formalities left now, just the T's and the dots over the I's left, and he's a Fenerbahce player. And Arsenal, I think they're going to be paying, 50% of his wages now to get rid of him. They're going to be paying half of his wages now until the end of his contract. So Fenerbahce are going to be paying half, and basically that's him out the door.
Okay, the assemble says, Ray, Arsene also said that Ozil cost too much. His commercial value was something else. This is what Arsenal brought. But the thing is, I hear a lot. Obviously, he does move a lot of shirts. We all know that. But what a football club gets back off of a shirt sale is practically zero. It's a little bit of a myth that the football club makes a lot of money from the sale of football shirts. The percentage is actually quite low. I just want to welcome in Tony. All right, mate.
Yeah, Tony.
Hello. Hey, Tony.
No longer in the hospital. Say again?
I said Mesut Bowie's in the middle.
So how long have you been home now from the hospital?
The day.
A day?
It's my second day.
He's settling back in.
Okay. And how you feeling, mate?
Not too bad.
Okay. So, I've asked everybody how their Christmas and New Year is, but I suppose, we all know that you didn't really have a really good one, that you was in the hospital. But it's really good to see that you're actually back now in your home.
Yeah, for Christmas Eve, I got 11 attempts of putting an IV in my arm. I couldn't get an IV in my arm. So that was my Christmas present.
So, Tony, what legacy does Mesut Ozil leave at Arsenal?
It's time for him to get out of here.
Say something nice as well.
Personally, right? In your opinion, how will you remember him when you look back?
Disappointment.
Disappointment. Yeah, I think a lot of people will probably will probably feel that way. So, Gary, I want to ask you the same question as well. What would be, in your eyes, what legacy does Mesut Ozil leave behind as an Arsenal player?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's a lot of what ifs, right? I mean, when he came in, he came in, basically on, lights out, basically, showing what he can do.
Yeah,
and then I think, and then essentially, well, yes, definitely, he had a good partner, right? And then as soon as his partner went, I think one of the things that Arsenal did, they kind of left him hanging, right? He didn't have that other player to play with. And as I recall, at one point he was one of the top players out there that produced scoring chances for their team, one of the tops in the world. But we just didn't have anybody to finish. I mean, we all go with the Giroud streak where he basically didn't score for like, I don't know, a couple of months or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of what ifs with him. And then towards the end, it was, for us, it's like, what if he just leaves, right? First, it was, what if he had better players around him? Now it's like, what if he leaves? What will Arsenal be after he goes? And it just never, didn't work out. I think the team didn't really kind of put him in this situation to some degree, right? I mean, he just like what we're seeing right now with Aubameyang, needs certain things. He didn't get it, and so he didn't look good. Eventually, I think he lost that whole feeling to play soccer like he did before. Football like he did before, and we're seeing the end of this. I think they soured him with football, and I think and that's what we got. And they didn't go out of their way to get rid of him like they should have, I think, because it was just he wasn't in their plans, and they should have let him go. As much as it probably stung, they should have tried to figure out a way to get him out, because it would have been better off for him, better off for the team. So for me, it's a lot of what ifs. I mean, if you're going to keep him on the team, I always said you play him. If you're not, then you have to figure out a way to get him out. Arsenal just didn't have the people to do that, and that's disappointing in itself. I mean, they basically wasted the money that they spent. Every week they're spending money on him, and he's not producing because he's not playing. So to some degree, it's the team's. He created this himself as well, but I think it's two-way street a little bit there. So we got to look at Arsenal as well when we're talking about how this thing soured. I think they kind of they could have. They could have cut this at the butt, as they say, and resolved it, but they didn't. And this is where we stand right now, and we're just kind of waiting it out.
Let me just jump in a second. Ray, if you got a link there, can you send a link to Rohan, please? He just sent me a message.
Yeah.
Cheers. So sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to cut you.
Yeah. No, like I said, I kind of feel like we created this monster, and I mean Arsenal, and we don't like it. But we never fixed it. There's multiple ways that it could have been fixed. I mean, either you play him or or he's off the team. I mean, he can't be both. He can't be on the team, sitting around, practicing and all of that, and not contributing. That just, to me, it sends a bad message to the locker room. Yeah, and that's what we saw. We saw a team that just basically didn't have they've never had that. What do they call it? That image, of a team that you wanted, and it started, like you said, at the top with the person who makes the most money. If you're a player looking up to trying to figure out how do I make it in this team, and you look at the top of the table, and there's a player there who's making the most money and is not playing. It's not a good look. Hopefully we don't see it again. But I mean, I feel like it's. He knows what he's doing, and the team is never going to win. They tried to, and every time they tried, he had an answer for it, and that's where they went wrong. They thought they could probably handle this themselves, and he's got better marketing people than we do, I believe. Yeah.
The one advantage in London is you can attract players to London. The one disadvantage is they kind of like London a little bit as well. They like to put roots down as well, so. It's kind of what happened as well, Stan, with Ozil. I think he kind of enjoyed London life.
You look at Willian, I think he's got a restaurant that he owns in London. He's really fully invested in it. And, for him going to from Chelsea to Arsenal, it was always really about convenience.
Yeah. I mean, Arsenal's been on the rebuild for a while now, and it's still in the rebuild. And they can't take players that are on the way out. I mean, that's what they've been doing, right? They've been taking players that, they've already they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and as opposed to one of those that want to work for it. And that's what we're seeing now, right? And we'll get into it later. But the team is in a rebuild, and they need people who are gonna work, right? They always talk about the passengers, and we got too many passengers. People don't want to work, right? And that's what we see. Ozil's one of them.
Yeah, their life is too cushy in London. They're getting paid well, and the city is.
I think things changed a lot for Ozil when Emery came in, because when Emery came in with the style he initially wanted to, bring in, which was that high pressing, game, win the ball high up the pitch. You got to work 110%, and he was, the players weren't really. They started off okay, and I think it just became a bit too much for them, which was one of the reasons why he changed tactics as well. The players just weren't really fit enough for that. But Ozil, he really struggled with that. We saw then, Ozil wasn't really giving the team what we wanted. And also Ozil was a bit more of a luxury player. He's used to having someone around him who win the ball and give him the ball. We did have that before with he excelled a lot with Ramsey, there as well, doing a lot of the work in midfield. Which left Ozil to sort of like doing more of the luxury things, and with Wenger coddling him as well, he could do what he wanted. That whole environment Wenger had going at Arsenal, where the players just basically did what they wanted. It's that environment we're trying to get away from now. And Ozil still, he's still in a part of that environment, and with Emery and now with Arteta, with this, the strict discipline with the tactics and everything else, just didn't fit into all of that. And of course, at the same time, giving him 350k a week didn't help either, because there's that whole side to it as well, which doesn't help at all. But he just doesn't fit in tactically. I mean, if you're playing a 4-3-3 or even now that hybrid, 3-4-3 we're playing, he just doesn't fit in. He doesn't fit in tactically because you've got to work.
Mesut Ozil doesn't fit in tactically. How come Emil Smith-Rowe seems to fit in more tactically?
Because he works 10 times or 50 times harder. He actually works defensively. You see him track back and win balls. You see he did tackles down at a left back position against in that last game against, who was it now? We just beat. I can't remember now. It's
West Brom.
West Brom. Yes, exactly. That 4-0 game. He was running back along the sideline and winning the ball. Ozil, he never went past the halfway line.
So I think that's the thing, though, right? I mean, that's the thing. At least that's the thing with Arsenal right now. They don't have a complete team where you can just slot in an Ozil and get the best out of him, because everything behind him is solid, right? We just don't have that, and that's why Emil Smith-Rowe kind of fits in pretty perfectly. And I think the way that Arteta has set up the team, he wants his players to be multifaceted, right? They can't just be, an offensive juggernaut and that's it. And they don't. We don't have the players right now to support that kind of a player right now. I mean, you're seeing it with Aubameyang, right? He always seems to be late to everything. He's late to every pass that comes in. I mean, but then you put a Lacazette, then he always seems to be in the right spot at the right time, And I think that's just where Arsenal is right now. So I feel like Arsenal is in a particular place in time where certain players just don't fit the mold. So Ozil being one of them, right? And it hurt them to have to hold on to him, because it kind of slowed down any progress they could have made because of the financial hit. I mean, you think about it, we've got Ozil, you've got Pepe, two of the most expensive players Arsenal had up until Aubameyang just signed, and it's draining them because they're not getting anything out of them. They barely get the offense from Pepe. They definitely don't get any defense from either of them. And Ozil just can't, it doesn't work into the system. And I think that's where, when they say he doesn't fit the system, I think it's because you got to be able to do both. And I know
he doesn't work hard.
I'm saying, what, he's that good anyways. But I'm like, we never even get in that position to where he can succeed. So that's why it doesn't even work for him. Even if everybody's doing the perfect thing, we don't have the talent right now to support an Ozil. Like you said, a Ramsey, we don't have that right now. right? We
So
don't.
is it a case then when people say, there's no room for a number 10, a lot of teams don't really play for a number 10. Is it more of a case that we do play for number 10? Hey, Rohan, thanks for coming in, mate.
Hello.
We do play with a number 10, but is it that the number 10 has to play the game differently now?
Yeah, because before, traditionally, like with a luxury player, like I said, he used to be at Real Madrid and stuff. I mean, you expect him to have an attacking input, but off the ball, you wouldn't really expect him to do very much because he'd have players around him to do that job for him. But with Arsenal, with the tactics we've employed with Emery and now, going on with Arteta and what he wants to do, every player on the pitch needs to produce off the ball as well. You've got instructions off the ball. You have to press, you have to do this, you have to do that. And Ozil just doesn't do that. He just doesn't have the off the ball sort of, aptitude. And also he doesn't have the effort. He just doesn't have that effort in him. You see he's jogging, he's not really into it. And this doesn't suit our system. You saw that so many times when he was playing. And that's another thing that's annoyed me with the whole Ozil thing is, bring him back. Well, Emery did bring him back and Arteta brought him back. He played, 7 or 8 or 9 games, wasn't very good, and then got dropped. I mean, why do we keep just remembering the 13, 14, 15, 2014, 2015, Ozil, and not the Ozil we saw last? That's what annoys me about the whole thing.
So let me just go to Rohan now. Hi, Rohan. A lot of you saw that we were on a show together yesterday, so it's only been a couple. I'm not going to ask you for how your new year was because I already know. You had a good one though, right?
Yeah, it was great.
So we're talking about Mesut Ozil, and I just wanted to ask you, what legacy does he leave behind in your eyes at Arsenal? When you reflect back and his name pops up, what's going to come into your mind about Mesut Ozil?
I somehow felt a bit of sadness, right? And now right now, what I feel is a sense of relief. I feel like, this is a big wage, off our books. And this is what will lead us forward. He's not the future, he's the past. But when I look at the past, I feel like, when he was signed, I remember, I was in India that time. So deadline day would come, it's 11 o'clock in the UK. So it's 4 in the morning in India. And I'm up the whole night. Are we going to sign anyone? Are we going to sign anyone? And then we signed Ozil. And, that was such a big deal at that point. I remember outside the Emirates, people had gathered with Ozil jerseys, right? And, so, and then he's played well. I went and saw him in DC when they had played the friendly with Real Madrid. And one of his touches, I still remember.
You might be able to see him in DC again.
I might see him in DC. Right. So one of his touches is just majestic, right? He used to glide on that pitch. When I think about great Champions League goals from Arsenal, I remember the one that he scored against Ludogorets and all of that. So I feel sad that a player of his quality and a player of his caliber is going out through the back door, right? That's what I feel is a little sad. The way it all ended. And I'm not saying that Arsenal is responsible for it. It's his own doing. When he was not welcome, he should have, gone ahead. But he chose money and he chose to be disrespectful and all of that. So yeah, but when I look back, I think that definitely the start of getting a world-class player, right? He was a bona fide world-class player who came into Arsenal at that point from Real Madrid. He wasn't a Dani Ceballos who's on loan and who's a nobody, right? He was the guy who came in. So, there's a bit of sadness in reflection, but right now, what I feel is this is the right way forward.
Okay. So it looks like the chapter's closed now on Mesut Ozil. I don't think we'll ever see him kick a ball in anger again for Arsenal. And that's it. So. Right.
Bye. Bye-bye, Ozil. Bye-bye.
Get that out of the way. I could take the fight out for.
Oh, I thought you keep that on for the whole show, Stan.
I'll keep this on. I'll keep this on. So Gary brought up the point.
Ozil going away party, is it?
Say again?
That was the Ozil going away party get up, is it?
That was it. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been told you got to do better next Tuesday if he's still
I'll
around.
do a bit better.
Okay. I did see that in the comments. I'll see what I can
Get a few more accessories, Stan.
So Arsenal have been playing over the last few games now in a very different way. The formation seems to be more solid. I think the three at the back seems to be ebbing even further away. But most interestingly, the lineup seems to be evolving over the last few weeks. And this kind of brings us round to a question that Gary raised. And that was, is there too much youth in the team? Is it possible that maybe moving forward, there's too much youth? So, Gary, if you want to expand on that.
Yeah. So, one of the things I kind of notice is that, at least for me, a lot of the players that we have on the team that we see as maybe the future, or at least the answers, are all pretty young. They're all in that, 23 and under range. I mean, I look at the numbers and, there's a lot of players that we have that are in that range. And depending on where we're planning to go, if we're trying to get to, the point where we're winning the leagues, I looked at said, let me take a look at some of the other teams that, we aspire to be in terms of where they finish up in the table and kind of how their youth is used. And, when their best players were at their top and prime, they were pretty much running, and a lot of them are in the kind of the mid-20s and above there as far as some of the teams. So I know we've got a lot of players under 23, and so we're pretty young, and I've seen like a lot of the mixture between the young and the old. It ranges from your low 20s to around your 30s right now in some of these teams, and the comparison to us and them is pretty big in terms of they're the players that are older or younger, and the count, the players that we need to depend on, I think, is a little bit too much for Arsenal to handle right now. They need a lot more seniority, players that have been established in the league, playing professionally, and I feel like right now the three players that we definitely probably should definitely be on the team and are part of the future, at least for now, are your Saka, your Mills-Rowe, and your Martinellis, right? Those three players right now, at least when they're healthy, which is the trick, right? Mills-Rowe and Martinelli have had injuries that have kept them out for a long period of time. But when they're healthy, those are the three players that we're seeing come to fruition and be the ones. But then you've got your Nelsons, your Willocks, your Eddies, and those have been the ones that we kind of thought we could lean on, and we found out that we can't. And we found out one of the reasons why is because they're just not ready. They need more seasoning, right? They need to have played, at least be, starters. And that's kind of one of the things that's come up multiple times, that those players need to be out on loan. So I kind of feel like we've got a lot of young players on the team that, one, just aren't ready. And when we compare it to the big teams like the Liverpools, the Bayern Munichs, Man Cities, and even I even took a look at like the West Hams and see where they are in terms of their players and their makeup of the players that they have there. They're all a lot older than the ones that we have, in terms of where things are going. So I feel like I think we have too much youth, and that's kind of why we can't get any consistency. And it's been a while, and now I feel like we might burn them out, right? A lot of these other teams out there that we aspire to be like, they're not utilizing their youth like we are right now. And that could burn them out. We know that. And that's why one reason we need depth, and we need depth with some seniority and experience, which we don't have right now. We don't have any players. We don't have enough players that can go in and, replace in a Mills-Rowe and do to some degree what he does, or Martinelli, right? We definitely don't have a Saka, right? I mean, those three players, that we have a decent backup that can come in and kind of replace them, and do a solid job. If we had to lose all three, would we? And I don't think we do. And that's kind of why I feel like we're leaning a lot too much on our youth, because the only players that we seem to have are the ones that we realize just aren't ready and need more time. So, yeah.
Let me keep on the top shelf here and go to Ray. And Gary made a good point there about burnout. I mean, do you think that, I look at a player like Hector Bellerin, Hector Bellerin seems like he's been around for donkey's years, right? But he's only like 25. and he started so young. And especially if you look back over last season and towards the beginning of this season, when he came back from his injury, basically I found a lot of the section of our fan base was saying that Hector Bellerin is basically dog shit, for want of a better phrase. Do you know what I mean? And he's lost his pace and this. Is there a case, do you think, Ray, that by having some of these youngsters in the team, like the Sakas and the Martinellis, and you playing them as a first team regular, is this what happens to them when they get to 25 then? Is there burnout? Do they look jaded and need to have a fresh challenge? And as Gary said, do you think that we can use Saka, Martinelli, these young players at ESR, can they actually be considered now first team starters, and we should be looking to buy players as backup to them? Or should we be looking for, say in ESR's case, someone who's a little bit older, who can mentor him, and ESR can share the position and ESR can fight for his place? What do you reckon? And while I'm just going to let the cat out.
Definitely, I do feel you're going to need the players that are 4 to 5 years older.
You're muted.
I'm muted. Wow. Really?
I can hear you.
I can hear him.
You need those players that are 4 to 5 years older than these young players. And the point that Gary made is really, really a good one. We have a lot of youth players, and I actually think it's a great thing for our academy to produce a crop of players that are going to basically supplement the team for the next 3, 4, 5 years, maybe even more. And then we've added in a Tierney or a Martinelli. This is fantastic. Now, the problem has come is the club's management of transfers in the last 5 years. That, as Gary's pointed out, our senior players, they're not doing an adequate enough job. They're the ones who should be holding down the mainstay of the team. They're the ones who should be performing week in, week out. They're the ones who the young players should be coming on and getting 25, 30 minutes, not playing full games or 65 minutes in the case of Emile Smith-Rowe. I'm very, very happy that we saw Emile Smith-Rowe play for 3 games. 3 games in a week.
What's your opinion of what you've seen of Emile Smith-Rowe for those 3 games?
Absolutely transformational. That's what the word I'm going to use. He's playing like Ozil was playing when he first came to the club, and there seems to be a work ethic within the player. He's got that the ability as well, but ability is wasted if you don't put the effort, the required effort into your game. And he's been tracking back. He's tackling inside of his own box, breaking things up, and he's instigating moves going forward. And that second goal against West Brom there, the last Premier League game, was engineered in a lot of part by him and Saka. And that understanding that they're developing on the right-hand side is fantastic. And sometimes a manager or a club will stumble across these pieces of the jigsaw. And it's unfortunate for Willian, it's unfortunate for Pepe, but Saka looks like he's going to settle in on the right side of midfield now.
Is that what you want?
That is what I would want. But again, as Gary has said, we can't go another 5-6 months with Emile Smith-Rowe playing every game. It's just not possible. This is a player who's sustained, deep tissue injuries throughout his career. And, I'll let someone else get in now, but we need the club to be active in terms of sourcing players who are going to help our young players along, because I'm seeing, Stan, a big gap between our senior players and our young players, a big gap in the age group of our squad. We need to supplement 24 to 28-year-olds into the team now. So,
Sam, what do you feel about the way that we're using our youth in the first squad at the moment? Are you worried that we could become over-reliant on them? Or are you in that camp that says, well, if they're fit enough and good enough to play each week, perhaps like when a young Wayne Rooney first emerged, he was very young when he started to Everton on a regular basis, and as long as he kept playing well, he continued to be picked. What's your thoughts? What do you think we should be doing with our youth?
Well, I think they should be playing as much as they can, because they are the better players, and that's what it's about. If you're fit and you've got, you're sharp enough, to play, you should be playing. It's as simple as that, But at the same time, of course, we need to have a squad where, for example, we're going to have weeks going forwards. We might have 2 to 3, 3 games a week, maybe. And, of course, in that period, you're going to have some rotation with the younger players just so they don't get burnt out, of course, because that could happen. If you're playing 2 to 3 games a week over a period of time, it's just that is something that could happen with the younger players. So that's where the Williams and the Pepes come in for me, is then you bring them in then just to bring them in as rotation, and then they're out again as soon as the younger players are ready. The younger players are going to become our stars now. That's our future.
It does seem a bit crazy that
they're good enough. They're good enough, and that's what it's about.
It seems crazy that we've got these young academy players, that have basically cost us, a farthing.
Well,
to bring through, and we've got these players, like Pepe. We're supposed to invest 72 million in him, and we've invested a lot of money in Willian, and they're the ones that are going to be. If you're suggesting that they should be the ones that should play the cup games, and they should be the ones that should be the rotation to give them a rest.
Because Emil Smith Rowe and Saka are, they're outperforming them. It's as simple as that. This is the thing I don't get with a lot of this stuff. This is Arsenal Football Club. We're supposed to be playing who is the best. We're not a university. In apprenticeship. We're not a city and guilds learning by doing. Come in. We'll teach you how to play football. This is Arsenal Football Club. The best players who perform the best. If you're 18 years old and you're outperforming someone who's 32, 33, sorry, that 18-year-old, if he's fit and sharp, he gets to play. It's as simple as that. Because this is a results business. It's not a who gets the grade at the end of the day, who improves the most at the end of the day. It's who gets the results. And our youngsters, because we've seen the terrible form our senior players have been in, and they can't play together, and there's no chemistry and cohesion, and we've seen the mess there was for 12, 13 games after the Fulham game, and we were all crying out for changes, and finally the changes were forced upon Arteta for various reasons. It's a different discussion, but the younger players came in and they really performed. They showed everyone how to do it, because we told everyone, with the exception of Martinelli, who in himself is that good at that level, he can play with anyone anyway, because that's how good he is. Yeah. But with the exception of Martinelli, these other kids, they've been playing together since they were 9 and 10 years old. So they know how to play together. That's what I'm saying. That's why I was never in doubt in letting Saka, Smith Rowe, Willock, Reece Nelson, these kids play together, because they have been playing together since the age of 9 and 10. And that's something people don't realise or don't think about. So, that's why I was never worried about it. And they are extremely hungry. They want to impress. They actually do. It looks like, of course, you can never really tell with a modern footballer. They're young kids as well. But it actually looks like they care about the club they're playing for as well. Having been there since they were 9 and 10, they've grown up with Arsenal in their blood. Smith Rowe is a London boy. He's grown up with Arsenal in his blood. The same with Saka. The same with Willock.
Saka from Watford.
But he was, he's a London boy. Watford's London. It's North London. You can say it's North London, out on the outskirts, but it's still London, right?
Watford trained directly next to Colney, like their training ground, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So I reckon they were at training, and someone was watching over a hedge, and they were like,
they get each other's footballs.
He looks all right,
No, but listen. I'm not scared about using the youth. I'm not. I've never been scared about using the youth, because there's precedence as well. Manchester United had the same problem in the early 90s. They had a transitional period where the older players weren't performing, and they were like, "What do we do?" And Ferguson's like, "Well, we've got a really good academy. They're doing really well. The academy boys have been playing really well, training well. Let's give a few of them a chance, and the rest is history, right?" The class of 92 came through.
We did it in the 80s as well, Sam.
Arsenal as well. Arsenal has a great tradition as well, with Parler, Adams, of course, Kevin Campbell. We've got a tradition as well, of course.
I mean,
the Hale End Academy, is famous, and that we shouldn't be surprised that these kids are coming through. And what scares everyone, and I know Wenger has that famous quote, which I really love, is like, when just because a player doesn't cost 50 million doesn't mean he's not good. Yeah. It's not about the price tag. It's about how good he is, and how many examples have we seen of that? How many players in the Premier League, right? This is an interesting question I actually want to pose. You look at all the players that cost the most in the Premier League. How many of them are performing above expectation? Very few. Timo Werner, what's he doing? Yeah. Finding Timo, right? Kai Havertz, Shai Havertz, right? The guy can't do anything. Look at the other big signings, right? Okay, they're not perforering. They're not performing.
I mean, that's the state of the game, though. That's not necessarily.
So you're getting all the, and then you got all these other, you got all the other players that come in at really low fees you never really heard about, come in from various countries, and they're outperforming all of them. So it's about with recruitment, it's about finding the right player who can do the right job. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to get the best player in terms of price tag, and it's an interesting development.
So I want to bring in Alonzo. Alonzo's joining us. All right, Lonnie, how's it going, mate? You all right?
Good, yeah. How you doing, Stan? Hey, guys.
Hello.
How's your Christmas and New Year, Lonnie?
It was pretty good. Just with family and work, so it was good.
So listen, we're talking about the youth being used in the squad, and I want to ask you a question, right, Lonnie? You're Mikel Arteta. You're sat there. The transfer window is just open. You've got some money to spend, and so you're looking at your squad, right? And you've got players like Martinelli, you've got players like Saka, you've got players like ESR that you're now beginning to integrate into the team. Are you going to buy players that are going to be backup and cover for those players, or are you going to be looking to buy players, for example, that might start ahead of a Martinelli on the left-hand side, or may start in a number 10 role, maybe a little bit ahead of ESR because they're maybe 25, 26 years of age? How are you going to build around the youth that we've got? What's their role in your team?
I think that with Arteta, I think that now he trusts the youngsters. So to me, it's a hard decision because, of course, I'm going to improve my team with the amount of money I'm given, but also you have to have faith, more so in your youngsters, because they've been playing well enough to make a difference and to hold their position and hold their own as far as being a constant starting 11. And I think that we have a lot more to invest in, more so than we need help at the back and at central midfield, where we need help at, because Grant Xhaka is not the answer, and somebody else is going back to Madrid next year. So I think that we should use our funds on re-signing Balogun. I think that he could be a future, and also maybe help at the back. That's what I would do.
You see, Stan. Stan, what you want to do? You always want to improve, right? You always want to get better players. If you're looking for a player that's better than Martinelli, that's going to be difficult to find. But that's the objective, right? You always want to go out and get the best players that you can. Find the diamonds in the rough and shine them up a little bit. So that's always should be the objective of the club. And I think, to Gary's point, we do have the right amount of youth. I would like 15 great youth players. I would like 16 great youth players, because then you have to go out and get the right blend of a little bit more experienced players who can stand up to the rigors of a full Premier League season. So I think we've got a great crop of youth players now. The key now in this window is to go out and get the 24 to 28-year-olds that's going to help these kids grow in the next 2 or 3 years as well. In key positions.
That's one of the things I did look at when I was trying to figure out, I looked at Liverpool and Bayern Munich because those are two of the top teams in the world, right? And looked at their age profile, some of their top players when they won the championship, the Champions League, and their top players were in that, basically, like you said, that 24 to 28 age range. And we've heard many times that Arsenal's probably 3 to 5 years from where they from being a team that can battle for
3 years if you want to list
3 years for the league, maybe 5 years for the champ. And if the numbers are true, and I looked at like Bayern in 2012 and Liverpool a couple years ago, their top players are in that age group, that we look at. You look at the Manes, the Salahs, you look at the Robin, Neuer. All those players are in that age group. There's some of them are still around today, but we don't have any players like that right now. We do have players that in 2 to 3 years from now will be in that age bracket. And it seems to be, I don't know if it's, if that's after they've been in the league for a while and they've got enough experience. That's where we are. If you look at it and you look at some of the past winners, that's where they all seem to be, and that seems to be the profile, good or bad. I mean, I think we are depending on too many of our young players because they're not at that level, right? We talk about our top three. The other young players, they don't provide the same kind of results and performance when they're out on the pitch, and that's kind of the issue with the younger players that we do have. They're just not there, and they've come up through some of them have come up through the same system. They're just not the same, right? Saka's never gone on loan. Martinelli's never gone on loan. Yusuf Rowe has, and I think that's been to the benefit for him. But a lot of the other players, either they haven't or they have, and it just hasn't worked out. And sometimes it doesn't. I always said to myself, since we do have those three top young players, is that enough? Is that kind of where most teams are? And I feel like they are. I think most teams don't have that many players in their 19 and 20 and 21-year-old that are essentially the top performers on the field for them, right? The ones that you got to lean on the most. I mean, we have the Tierney and the Gabriels on the back, but up top, I think a lot of the teams are a little bit older when they in terms of their age profile for those types of positions, and it might be a while for us, and I don't want to lose them, but that's why these transfer periods got to be really good and got to fix the depth. I mean, I feel like they got it. That's the problem. We just don't have the depth, right? Even if we had to sit the three, we still need to have somebody to come up behind them and be able to perform, if not close, just a little bit below where the standards that they provide out there.
So you brought up something that I'd like to bring Rohan in on, and it's kind of like a flipped one to the question that I asked Lonnie. You're Mikel Arteta, the transfer window is open, and you're looking at the young players that you've been mixing into the team. ESR, Willock, Nelson, Eddie Nketiah, Balogun, if you want to throw him in there, Emil Smith-Rowe. Is there anyone out of these youngsters, Willock as well, I don't know if I mentioned him, Nelson, is there anyone out of these clutch of youngsters that we've had in and around the first team that you're going to sell or loan out?
Yeah,
go ahead, Brian.
I think we've tried with Willock quite a bit, and in fact, like last season, I think he was the most used player at the club, and he still hasn't cemented his place, and maybe he can do something on loan. He needs to go out. Reece Nelson, I was very, very excited when he was going to come into the team because he did well at Hoffenheim, but since he's come in, he just looks, underconfident. Whenever the ball is at his feet in front of goal, he sort of fluffs it. He's never taken the chance when he's got the chance, and he doesn't even seem favored because, Willian, with his bad run of form, plays there. Pepe, who's not been performing, plays there, but Reece Nelson, who had a couple of good games in the Europa League, but but he hasn't performed in the Premier League. So he's another one. I don't know if a loan move will do him any good, or whether we should cut our losses and maybe move forward there. That's the other one. And but apart from that, and Eddie Nketiah again, we've discussed this before. The kind of player that he is, a tap-in poacher. I don't want to call him a tap-in merchant, but he's a poacher.
No, say
And
it how you see it.
I see him as a tap-in merchant right now, because like when he's got chances from a little further away, and he's just not. When he's had the time, he's still tried to hit it first time, and I don't think he has that quality to do that. And if it's between him and Balogun, then we need to start giving Balogun chances. And Aubameyang's here to stay, so he's gonna be here, and Lacazette will probably go, but one of the youngsters who's gonna be here, it should be Balogun, and we need to give him the contract. But the three players who are settled in the team now are Martinelli, Saka, and then ESR. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. ESR has played 3 games right now, and he's become the savior of Arsenal Football Club all of a sudden, right? Like now we think that after 3 games he should get an understudy who should come and be a backup to him. He's just come into the team. Like, what are we talking about? We need people say this transfer window will be a big one for us, right? Because there's lots of players.
You said that the last one.
Sorry?
You said that in the summer.
So this transfer window is just going to be so big for us, because there's just going to be so many of these players going out, off of our wage bills, big earners, that we need to bring in players, but we need to bring in players of the right age, of the right quality, and the right hunger. Right? Like, these are the 3 things that we need. We don't need world beaters, but we don't want to get substandard players as well. And I don't think we should go in for, more youth or more youngsters, or trying to, sort of, supplement youth with youth, but go into that 25 to 27 range, who are players who have the potential to grow, who have the young hunger, Diego Jota types, those sort of players who have that hunger, who have proved themselves in the Premier League, maybe, players like that, and not depend so much on the youth. But if the young guys if you're good enough, you're old enough, right? As they say. So if these young guys can play, that's well and good. But we need to supplement that with some more age, quality, and hunger. These are the
there's just one thing, Rohan. I wouldn't see it as understudies. I would see it as competition. Bring 2 players in for every position, and let it be a competition between Emile Smith-Rowe and the next creative player that we're going to get, hopefully.
So before we move on to the next topic, I'm going to go around with a question, and I just want a yes or no on this one, and that is, if Wolves are going to come knocking at the door and they're going to offer us £20 million for Eddie Nketiah, are you accepting the deal, or are you not accepting the deal, Gary?
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Yeah.
I mean, you're taking the money.
You're taking the 20 million and you're running off with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Ray as well says take the 20 million. Lonnie, what are you doing? You taking the money or what?
I'm setting Eddie Nketiah alone for 2 years. I think that there's something in there with Eddie Nketiah, but it's not happening at Arsenal right now. Maybe he needs to learn the games in Wolves, maybe somewhere else. But I put him on loan for 2 years, maybe.
Okay, Rohan, what are you doing? You taking the cash, or you're going to struggle?
Yeah, 20 million is good money for someone that's not cemented his place, not proved good for us. And
do you think 20 million would be about right? Would that be about the right kind of money?
I think that's about the right kind of money, and I do believe that he has a good future ahead of him, and he could do well. But I don't see him doing well at Arsenal. The way that we play right now, he's not the right guy for us. So we need to cut our losses and we need to invest in other places. Let's remember that our team has, Arsenal has taken $120 million loan from the government right now. So I'm not sure whether the Kroenkes are gonna fill in our war chest to go in and get supplements and get players, to bolster our squad. And where we are really dying right now is midfield. So, that 20 million can be used elsewhere in midfield, and we sort of move from there.
Sam, what are you doing?
Sell him, because as long as Arteta is manager, he's not going to suit the way we play. Tactically, he just doesn't suit the way we play. It's as simple as that. And he's a very good player. He's a very good talent. You see what he's done at under 21 level for England. It's been amazing. So there is a player there. He needs to go and find a team that suits his style. And I think if he finds a team that suits his style, he could be a very good player and score a lot of goals. But that's not happening with us at Arsenal. So 20 million is a good deal.
Do you actually believe that, Sam, that Mikel would take the money? Because he seems really, that's a funny phrase to use, right? But Eddie Nketiah does seem like Mikel Arteta's little pet project, And
because he uses him a lot, doesn't he? Yeah.
I feel that I've seen quite enough now of Eddie Nketiah. And when I say it like that, I mean, I think I kind of know what he can do and what he can't do and what he's going about. But the brief cameos that I've seen with Balogun, I don't watch under 23 football, but the cameos that I've seen of him, I want to see a little bit more. So I'm surprised that there was some, for example, the dead rubber game in the Europa League would have been a perfect opportunity to give some more minutes to Balogun, because it wouldn't have cost us anything. There was nothing at stake. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it shows that Arteta does rate Nketiah higher than Balogun. That's what it shows, and he's made that same decision with other players that we don't really understand, right? So Arteta has this weird little system of looking at players that we don't really understand. This depth chart he has in certain positions we just don't understand. But that's the way Arteta's rolling at the moment. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think Balogun, from the little I've seen from him, great. It's not a lot I've really seen from him, but he does seem to suit our style a lot better than Nketiah. The overall play seems to suit us a lot better. And the other thing I think maybe is going against Balogun is, there's still a lot of rumours about him, wanting to leave and, signing pre-contracts with other clubs.
I've heard there are 15 clubs. I've heard there are 15 clubs in this country and abroad that are making inquiries of the availability of Balogun.
And it makes sense because he's that good a talent, right? The film is there. He's, you've seen him play. He's that good a talent. And I'm actually, I don't know what Arteta's doing. Is Arteta punishing him? Why is he not playing? Because he's shown he's good enough to play. But, it's Nketiah that comes ahead of him. And Nketiah doesn't even suit our style of play. He's a poacher. We don't play that style of football. We have hold-up play where, the centre forward comes deep and he links up with the midfield. And Nketiah can't really do that. So, I don't know. It's one of these Arteta things.
Someone's definitely going to have to give there because, Balogun and Nketiah, they both share the same agent. So we're only going to, at some point, we're going to have to make a decision, and the agent will make sure that we have to make a decision because the agent's going to want to move one of them on because that agent's work. That's how they make money.
Then we're now in Arsenal Football Club, then we're probably going to make the wrong decision again and be left with the wrong player. I mean, how many times have we done that now?
Right.
So, we've done that again and again and again.
Isn't it a two-way street with the player and the club? The player's got to want to stay.
Balogun might not want to stay. Balogun might not want to stay for all we know. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to stay. Maybe he doesn't like Arteta. I don't know. We don't know, right?
While we're on this topic, it's quite a nice segue into a question that Tony put up for this show as well. And Tony wanted to ask as well, why do you think Arteta stopped being stubborn with some of his lineups and finally went with the youth? I mean, I personally think that in some cases his hand was forced because of the suspensions. But I just, Ray, what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely suspensions forced his hand with Granit Xhaka in the Burnley game. We all remember that moment, right? Two great moments for Granit Xhaka now in his career that we're going to remember when he does actually leave the club. You know, the first one running at him against Crystal Palace,
Yeah.
gesturing to the fans, and the second one losing his head in a crucial Premier League game against Burnley. Probably no disrespect to Burnley, but a worse result for many seasons, I would say, especially playing at home. So yeah, suspensions played a part, forced Arteta into this situation. But I really can't see how he can walk this back now and change things back to the way they were.
And I wanted to ask Gary that as well. Gary, do you think there's any way that we're going to see Mikel Arteta somehow try and walk all this back, and we're going to start seeing, David Luiz and players like Willian getting more minutes? Or do you think that if we're going to call this a happy accident, which some people have been calling it, do you think we're going to stick with it?
Yeah, that is my fear. That is my fear that
He's going to walk it back.
He's stubborn. He has a plan that nobody else sees that isn't working. And when he was forced, like you said, we believe he was forced to make a change, and it actually worked out. And the things that we wanted to see out of the players that he put in, we actually saw it, which is surprising in itself. Usually the manager, right? Usually the manager knows exactly what his players are going to do when they get out there. We've seen that he does not know that, right? When Arsene is exhibit A of what, we everybody was concerned about it, and we saw it. We were happy to see Emile Smith-Rowe, Martinelli get out there and play because we had thoughts in our head that this is kind of how things may go, and they went exactly like they did, right? Do we know more than him? We shouldn't. I hope not. I hope there's more, But I'm just fearful that he's going to go back and go back to his old ways, which kind of scares me a little bit because he's gonna lose, lose the locker room when if you go out there and you had 3 games in a row and you've scored 8 goals, and then you pulling some of those players and you see the goals dry up, you see your back line getting attacked because there's no threat that they're going to move the ball forward. Things are going to just go downhill. So yeah, I'm fearful of that. I mean, one thing I wanted to say before I go, Jacques has had 2 strikes, and as I recall, if you get a yellow card early in the game and the coach feels like, you know what, I might have to pull him later because I don't want to see him go out with a red. I don't think Jacques should even get close to getting to a 3rd strike. That should not happen. So, does that mean he doesn't play when Partey's healthy? That's what I would expect.
I actually fear that he thinks Granit Xhaka is the perfect partner for Partey.
Yeah,
that's my fear.
I didn't think that worked the first time they played, so I'm not sure.
Hold on. There's a woman in the background of Alonso's screen. Who is that?
My mom.
Hello, Mom. How are you?
Yeah. So, like I said, I feel like we don't want to get that 3rd strike from Xhaka. I think that would just Arsenal, the Arsenal verse would just go. That's what's going to happen. All right. So, but yeah, I fear that he's going to go back. I mean, the one thing that I have not heard him say is that by implementing the youth in the team, the Emile Smith-Rowe and Martinelli's, and then seeing how that affects Xhaka, that's a good thing. I don't think I've ever heard him say that. Whenever it comes up, he kind of deters the subject and talks about something else. So I don't understand why. Does he not like the way these games have been going? But he hasn't said it. He hasn't said, like when Martinelli came in the first time he came in, the way he played, he was all by himself. I mean, he almost broke his leg doing it.
Yeah.
And then the next game, Rowe comes in there. Now you've got 2 players with the same kind of drive, determination, and this is what we're getting in 2 games, right? So I feel like it should be easy. This is an easy one. You play them until you need to rest them.
Gary, what we're seeing, Gary, is now these young players differentiating themselves from the rest of the team. We got Martinelli, who has the drive of Alexis Sanchez. and we got Emil Smith-Rowe rowing in along. And those experienced players like Granit Xhaka, they better come along for the ride, or they won't be in the team for very long.
Yeah. I was just saying that's the one thing. That's the one thing that the last game showed me is like I didn't even notice that Jacques and Bellerin were on the field because we had so much going on. I mean, it was a pleasure that I didn't even have to worry about. Even if they made a mistake, it didn't seem like it affected us as it has in the past. So I feel like they brought something to the team. Everybody's at least gotten a little. Their performances have gone up a little bit based on what I'm seeing, and so. Yeah, and that's a fearful thing I have as well, is that because the team's playing so well, Arteta will feel like Jacques and Bellerin to me are okay where they are, and there's no reason to improve.
Like a really great referee that referees a game, he should not be noticed. Stan?
So yeah, I mean, I think we've covered quite a lot now about our youth players, and I think it also encompassed a question that Lonnie asked about what roles they should be playing as well. But I'd like to ask, go into another area, because we kind of touched on it earlier and it kind of rolls into it about Saka now seeming to have a good showing on the right-hand side of the midfield, the wing, if you want to call it that. So where does this leave our record signing, Nicolas Pepe? I mean, how is there a way back for Nicolas Pepe to somehow work his way back into this team? Is it playing him in a different position? Is it that our manager doesn't fancy him? Do you think he's going to get sold? What do you think, Ray, is the deal with Nicolas Pepe, our record signing?
We had a situation where Mikel Arteta himself was very, very close to being sacked at the end of last year, over the new year. And that big win over Chelsea and subsequently winning 2 more games brought him back from the brink.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that he was close to getting sacked, or do you believe that maybe the board are like, okay, we're sticking? Obviously, if we in a relegation battle, that changes everything. But do you think that there was a chance of him getting sacked if Chelsea?
If the rod had gone on, if we'd lost more and more games, I think it would have been an untenable situation, playing 16th, 17th in the table. The club would have had to have done something if he continued to lose games. So I do believe that, yeah. It was always my intention, and Gary will know that I was going to give him till the end of January and see what was going on in February. Give him the benefit of this transfer window.
Yeah, I thought exactly the same, funny enough, the same kind of time frame. But how does Nicolas Pepe work his way back into this?
So, like Arteta has done, he's got to bring himself back from the brink, and he has to start fixing his own game. He's got to be more effective. He has played with the younger players. I've seen some people dismiss the idea that him playing with Emil Smith-Rowe and maybe Martinelli in a balanced lineup would not benefit him. I think it will benefit him. We've seen it in the Europa League. We've seen these young players stepping forward from the Europa League into the Premier League and doing reasonably well in the last 2 or 3 games. I think Pepe, his career with Arsenal is in the balance, and I think he will have until the summertime to be evaluated. I don't think we're going to sell him this window, but he certainly does need a run of games. I think he's a player that does need games to show his best. And he's very much like an Ozil type of player. He is an Ozil, but he does have some end product. But he's infuriating at times in terms of what he does and his work rate. So that's where I stand with Pepe.
Lonnie, Nicolas Pepe, what's been your opinion of him thus far as an Arsenal player?
I think, like Ray said, it's been frustrating because, he's a record signing, so you expect more out of him. And, you would think that he would take more initiative to make it right. And he hasn't done that for a reason. And maybe he doesn't know how to adapt the pressure of being a record signing, or maybe he's just still stuck in his ways of, I want to dribble around the player and try to get a goal in or a great passing, but it hasn't worked out for a reason. I think that maybe it's Arteta not trusting him. Maybe it's Arteta not trusting him more to make that run or what have you. But as an Arsenal fan, you might give him the benefit of the doubt that he can make a great run or a great score like he's been known to do in the past. But for me, he just hasn't done it, and maybe it's Willian getting in the way of things, or maybe it's just his mind, or like I said, the pressure of him not being able to come through with that record signing that he's been given. And I think that whomever made the decision to sign him to that deal was just crazy, because we haven't seen nothing that can signal that he's worth 72 million euros or pounds. So it's been very frustrating.
Same question to you, Rohan. I mean, with Nicola Pepe, what's your thoughts? I mean, what's your opinion of him thus far as an Arsenal player?
Thus far, he's not performed. When he came in, again, excitement. When he came in, he'd scored like 22 goals in league. Sought after people wanted to get him. Like I would have still preferred Zaha over him. Because he's proven in the league, and this league isn't that easy as we've seen. But he's had his moments, and I have sort of tried to look for positives with him, but he just drifts in and out of games so much. Although he is one-dimensional, I feel like he has the ability to take players on. He has that touch. He has that, the way that he plays. I really thought that he could be our Robin, but he's done none of that. He's not imposed himself in games. He sort of shies away from games. He needs to come out and express himself, and he has that ability. For me, he's the player who can be our, ace, who can be the maverick. You don't know what to expect, and he can chip in with a goal. He can drift in, and you can't stop him. He can put in a curler. When he's played well against Manchester United a couple of times, and he's played really well. In that final against Chelsea, he played really well. There'd been moments, but by and large, if you spend 70-odd million on a player from a club like Arsenal, then you expect him to perform most weeks, and he's just not performed. So I think we should give him until the end of the season. Maybe this half of the season has been so bad. It's been bad for everyone, and he's been in and out of the squad and kept out by Willian. Now, if he can get a run in, and we've changed our system, there's a number 10, and his game is putting balls in behind, and so that he can run and he can get on that. If he can get that sort of a system to play to his strength, he could turn it around, and I would like for him to turn it around. If not, then this summer we need to sort of cut our losses, and if Saka is good enough on the right and we've got Martinelli on the left, then there's no need again for such an expensive player. If we can get, let's say, 40-odd million for him, we should maybe cut our losses then, and again reinvest in the midfield and the defense. That's where we need to reinvest.
So Sam, Nicola Pepe, his first season, was it 10 goals, 8 assists in competitions? A good return for you, or what's your thoughts?
No, it's nowhere near good enough, is it? No, because he's well beyond the point of he's still learning the Premier League or whatever. He's played more than enough games now to figure out the Premier League. He's just, unfortunately, he's just not good enough. I mean,
sounds like you're not a fan, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I coined the term Long John Silver, right? Because you could see straight away the guy only had one leg, and he's his right leg is basically just a stand on. He did have that one goal with his right foot, which actually astonished everyone. But apart from that, he struggles with his right foot. He always has to put everything over on his left. And when you're playing intelligent defenders,
Nicola Pepe is so one-footed, we might as well cut that leg off and give it to Tony.
Exactly. Donate it, yeah. Donate it, yeah.
And keep it nice, and you got some good stuff with that leg. He's just wasting it. So sorry.
Exactly. No, but you're so right. Yeah, I mean, you might as well just donate it. But and when you're playing intelligent defenders, right, like you're doing in the Premier League, they sussed out Pepe very quickly, because it's like, all you got to do is show him to the inside, and he's going to come across other defenders and other players, and that's it. You know, or you show him to the outside, and he's not going to do anything, because out on the outside with his right foot, he's just completely ineffective. So it's just too easy to play against him. And yes, he does have those skills, and he does have those, you know, what do you want to call it? Those unorthodox abilities, or whatever you want to say. Apparently,
I like calling him a Rohan said.
Apparently, in training, he's amazing. He does all these amazing things in training. But listen, you got to do it on the football pitch, and he just doesn't do it. And you can see off the ball as well. The guy's completely lost off the ball. It's like he's not used to defending at Lille. It's like, what was he doing off the ball at Lille? Did he have any defensive duties? I don't know if he did. I mean, he was completely lost.
When he was at Lille and he wasn't on the ball, he's like leaning over and chatting birds up in the crowd.
It's nearly that. You've got to wonder, because I mean, he just, the guy off the ball, he's just like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's like, oh, am I supposed to be there? Am I supposed to be there? Oh, okay, I've got to be over there. You see players constantly directing him around, telling him where he needs to be. You know, again, it's the scouting. I mean, yes, you see these amazing clips of him at Lille, and he scored, what was it, 30-odd goals or whatever as a winger, where like 15 of them were penalties or whatever. But yeah, he looked amazing at Lille. But it's like,
he's our
where was the scouting?
Yeah,
exactly. Where was the scouting in this? How can you scout him and not see the guy's only got 1 foot, you know, and he can't work. And he does nothing off the ball. The guy does nothing off the ball. So I don't know. So again, but we know what we got him. We got him because of Raul, right? We really wanted Zaha, and then we ended up getting Raul because of his connections with Kia and all that, right? So we know that's what happened.
Let me ask Gary. The story that I heard from the Oracle, that is David Ornstein, was that, you know, when Nicola Pepe was being looked at by Arsenal had Nicola Pepe valued at between 40 to 50 million pounds. That was the valuation, but we ended up paying 72 million pounds. So, you know, Nicola Pepe, value for money, or did we get our pants pulled down?
Well, I think that's what Tim Lewis has uncovered, right? I mean, Tim Lewis started his job. Tim Lewis, who comes actually has a footballing background as well. I mean, the guy he's been a Arsenal fan. Actually worked at Arsenal as a kid as well, but then he went into the corporate law game, and he's a very high ranked lawyer and auditor for I can't remember. It's one of the very well known company. I can't remember which company it was.
Rohan knows.
He comes to Arsenal. He comes to Arsenal, right, to take a place.
Rohan knows the name. Go on, Rohan.
Clifford Chance.
Who is it?
Right.
Clifford Chance.
Okay. Continue.
Right. Yeah. They're very well known anyway. And the thing is, so he comes into Arsenal and he starts doing his job, but he starts auditing what's going on, and he audits the transfers, and straight away, I think, a couple of days later, Raul is out the door. So we know that transfer was filled with irregularities and stuff going on, with payments here and payments there, and we could just tell 72 million. I mean, come on. It just doesn't make sense, does it?
It must have been very difficult for Raul to deny any wrongdoing when you're walking around the corridors of Arsenal with your fist stuck in a cookie jar that you can't get out. Gary, Nicola Pepe, what's your overall opinion of him since he's been a player at Arsenal? I mean, first of all, when he was coming in and his name was mentioned, what was your feelings about bringing him in? Because I was one of those that I was like, they were like, Stan, we're getting Nicola Pepe. And I was like, who? And they were like, Nicola Pepe. I'm like,
yeah.
He cost 72 million pounds. I'm like, well, that's a lot of money. But they were like, he must be good.
Now tell the truth, Gary. Tell the truth. Come on.
I don't know. I never knew who Nicola Pepe was. I mean, I'm gonna just like most people. I mean, 72 million. He better be good for 72 million, right? I mean, and the one thing that's telling about this whole thing is this year, the oldest and one of the one of the oldest and one of the youngest players that have played in his position, and for 90 minutes they looked like one of the better players on the field. And he's been out there and not even close, and that's telling, right? When Williams first and essentially last game that he played good in is still better than yours, and you've played in multiple since. That's
no, he's
telling.
not. Willian has not been better than Pepe.
No, I said since the first game. I said since the first game because when William played in that first game, I said this is telling, right?
Yeah.
Because Pepe, the reason why I thought William was coming in was to back up Pepe and give him some mentorship and some support. Of course, it sounded like that he took his job basically, right? The first time he went out there and played, he looked really good, right? I mean, I don't know if he was player of the game or not, but he looked really good in that first game. You haven't seen it since. Nothing really has changed, but we haven't seen it since.
Nope.
Saka, last 2 games, playing the same position. One of the top players out there, doing what he's been doing all year on the right-hand side and doing it better now because he's got better support. But
is there a case, though, I mean, and anyone can jump in with this one, to be made that we're not using him correctly? Does anyone have that feeling that?
Yeah.
I've heard. Answer me to say something real quick. I've heard that he should be on a forward on was it the left or right side, and that he'll play better on the inside there. But you know what? He hasn't shown me enough that it would even matter if we put him in his right position right now. Because give me some glimpses in a game, and I would feel like, you know what? If you were in your right position, then I would see something. I'm not seeing enough to warrant us changing our structure to fit him in, right? What we're seeing right now is probably the best I think we're going to get all year in terms of a structure and the players that we have out there, and he doesn't fit in that mold right now. So yeah, I don't think he's going to get what he wants, which is to play in whatever position he feels comfortable in. Because why would we do that? Our top players are playing in the positions where they're succeeding. It'd be really, I think it'd be at this point really bad to do that.
Right.
So I wanted Pepe. Sorry, Rohan. Real quick, I'll just say this. I wanted Pepe the January window before we got him. So I wanted him a full 6 months before we got him. I was gassed when we got him. This sounds like Ozo had started a podcast here. I hope it doesn't end that way. But I realized when we got Pepe, our midfield was not ready to play the type of football that Lille were playing for Pepe. And I'm hoping that we're going to evolve that way with Emile Smith-Rowe and some more creative players, just like Rohan was saying. So that's my hope for Pepe. And I hope it happens soon because I don't think he's going to be given too many more months, probably till summertime. Rohan, you want to jump in?
Rohan?
He did get a chance, I think, like in the first game that he played, which is the 3rd game of last season against Liverpool. He started and he got the striker's berth, right? Like he got that chance and he absolutely blew it. Like twice he got 1-on-1 with the keeper and he just couldn't finish that. And he's got into those positions a number of times where he had the chance to run in and sort of create that situation of a forward for himself, but he's hidden away. He's shied away from that, and the thing with him being so left-footed. I mean, Robben was that left-footed. Everybody knew what he was going to do, but he still executed it. But every time he did it, and you just couldn't stop him. But if Pepe, with his quick feet, I would think that he could win a lot of penalties. He can, do a lot. But for some reason, that's just would not be possible with him. And if the Premier League is just too much for him, then we need to, just take the L and move on. That's the way it is. Maybe trade him for. I don't know, give him and some cash for a Grealish or someone, someone who's proven here, or pay him and cash for Zaha or something, something like that, that would make more sense. To people who are proven in the Premier League, who don't take that adapting time, who are not Willian, who players like those, who come in and basically make our team better.
I think that's a great segue into something that just popped into my head there. You were talking about cash and finances, and there is a story that's come out today that Arsenal are going to be getting a bank loan of around 150 million. Obviously, we don't have fans going into the stadium, and revenue isn't coming in how it usually would. Is there anyone on the panel that knows a little bit more about this bank loan, about maybe why we're doing it? Is this something that's out of the ordinary? Because there are other clubs that have done a similar thing. I know, Rohan, you work in a legal field. I don't know if you have any scope on this subject.
Not this one, no, not yet, because this this news is just broken, so we're still waiting for some more. But it seems to be some sort of relief fund, right? Like this seems to be some sort of a relief fund. The only thing that I take away from this is that if we have to take a loan to run our club, then I could assume that the war chest isn't going to be too big. We can't expect too many people coming. That's my take from it right now.
So this money that we're going to be getting, this bank loan, is this just for operations? What, none of it is going to be used to strengthen the playing staff?
I don't think so. I mean,
really?
I mean, my understanding is none of that money is going to go towards transfers, or it's not to be used that way. And that's not. I mean, my understanding is that the Spurs also did the same thing for like 175.
Right.
Or euro. So I think this is just, like you said, it's a relief fund just to support the business. Others have said, why can't they just take out a loan with,
worrying about? Is it something that we should be worrying about as fans, or is this kind of a thing quite normal in the current circumstances of what's happening? Anyone?
I don't know much about that, but if it seems like it's a relief program that's out there, which means that the FA must know that they need to support their team somehow with all that's going on. So I assume it's not just it's not the Spurs and Arsenal the only ones getting it. I assume there's more. They just haven't been publicized as much as that's just my guess. But there's a program out there to support them, so I'm assuming that somebody realizes that teams need a little bit of help during this time as well.
My only worry is that bank loans. If you borrow 150 million, you're never paying back 150 million, or else they won't loan you the money, right? But
I think it's due like when the season starts, so it's due in like 6 months or something like that. So it's not a long-term loan in that sense. So supposedly it'll be paid off before either the season starts or right after the new season starts.
Can I comment on it?
Yeah, Lonnie, please.
Okay. So if we do need help, I think that it does go to the business itself. However, I think that as fans, we should be worried because, you see Stan owns several franchises here in the States. And he recently, I guess, is building a new stadium for, the Rams. Maybe it's time that he part ways with Arsenal and just sell the team completely because, what's the point of having it around if you have to borrow money from the bank? But then again, we're in a pandemic, and so I think that it's important to take out a loan if you absolutely need one. So it's just something that I've noticed, or I'm observing, is that if Stan can't afford Arsenal anymore, and he just sold it.
Okay. All right. So for this kind of last segment, there's kind of two pieces that I want to kind of roll into one. We've got a game coming up at the weekend. Is it FA Cup, right? Newcastle.
Yeah.
Me personally, Arsenal-Newcastle is one of my favourite fixtures on the calendar for two reasons. One, I had a great-grandfather, as some of you know, he played for Newcastle, so there's an affection there. But also as well, one of the best goals I've ever seen scored by a player in an Arsenal shirt was the Dennis Bergkamp goal against Newcastle.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for me, I can't find anything else that touches that. So looking ahead to that game, And it's kind of circling back a little bit to the point, the question that Gary submitted to the panel about playing youth, because we've got quite a bit of a rest in between to the next game. So what do we do against Newcastle? I mean, are we gonna treat this? Should we treat this like it's a Premier League game and field our first team, i.e. Leno? I mean, it'd be suicide to put Runnison in, right? man throws the ball in the back of the net. I mean, you just don't need. So I mean, are we going to sort of like take this as a?
That's okay, Stan, because we score 4 or 5 goals. We can offset that, no problem at all.
But are we going to take it like? I mean, because we are playing against a Premier League team as well, even though it's the FA Cup. Should we be looking at playing? And I'd like to see what everyone in the chat box feels about this as well. Should we be putting out the best team that we can? And I would say that our best team at the moment is including these youngsters, because they're the ones that have helped with the momentum to get us on a run of 3 games. Or should we be doing a bit of rotation and putting in a David Luiz, putting in a Willian? What's your thoughts on Ray? What should we do? Newcastle.
I personally think, and some people are definitely going to disagree with me here. I know that because we're Arsenal.
You're going to say Runnison, are you?
What?
You're going to say Runnison.
No, not Runnison. Where they're going to disagree with me is I would play Gabriel. I would play Partey. I would play some of those players who have not played yet, have been training. And we might have some worries about them getting some more injuries that we're going to worry about for the league. But I definitely want to value this competition.
Would you start with a Partey, or would you bring him in?
I would start with a Partey. I would start with Gabriel in there as well, and maybe David Luiz as a right centre.
Very ballsy.
What's that?
Very ballsy. I like it. Ballsy.
Yeah. You have to put some respect on this competition. We're the champions of we have won the cup. We have to defend it now. And I would not want to put a team out like the Carabao Cup in a quarterfinal where Spurs are still in the same competition and we sort of sacrifice the tie against Manchester City. I believe City will go on and beat Spurs, hopefully, in the Carabao Cup final. What?
I said they bloody well better.
Better. Well, I think we're going to have a mix. I think we'll have a mixture. We'll have Pepe on the right side. We will play a couple of players, and we're going to rest some of the younger players.
Okay.
But it's going to be a mixture.
But you would prefer to see us put out our strongest team if it was you, if you had the way.
That's a pretty strong team with Pepe. Gary won't think so. Partey, Gabriel.
I don't see how Pepe is part of our strong team right now.
It's a strong team. Putting the £72 million
player. The money doesn't mean anything because he's worth more than Saka, Martinelli, and Emile Smith-Rowe, and there's still more money left over for others. And I think they're still going to give us more out of it. So you have 7. You have
the chat box makes a very good point. He says you have to keep all of your players motivated.
Yeah.
Just staying on this top shelf here, Gary. What if you were like calling the shots? What kind of a team would you put out against Newcastle? Bearing in mind you've got quite a bit of a rest to the next one.
That's the thing. So you do have to rest. So what do you do? I almost feel like if you're going to rest someone, it's got to be, to me, Saka. Definitely. He's been one that we've utilized a lot and leaned on him.
A lot of minutes.
And so if somebody's going to rest, it would be him. And Emile Smith-Rowe and Martinelli. Do we want them to stay in form or not? Do we at least bring them off the bench at the worst case scenario for about 30 minutes? If we're not going to start them. But I think Saka would be the one player that I could see missing the entire thing, and I wouldn't bat an eye for that one because I feel like that would be a good one. Pepe, if he needs to get back in, I understand the confidence thing. But you've seen the young players been sitting there. They've been sitting back watching all of this. Came out, and just perform. So what? How much more of that? That's hand holding, right? We got to try and get their confidence back at some point. It's just not happening, right? I mean,
when is there anyone that's been on the kind of fringes of the last few games, whether it be injury or rest or whatever, like a Willian or a David Luiz, are you bringing any of them back?
I don't. I wouldn't, but I don't feel like
Harry. I'm gonna check back on this over the weekend. 137.
Yeah, you know what? When the lineup comes up and I'm crying, then you know what he did. He went back, right? He went back to normal. If I'm okay, then he's that means he's maybe went half and half. And if I'm doing flips, then he brought it. He kept most of the starters in. I mean, this is a weird time, right? Because we've had this big gap, and then we're going to have another big gap between the next game, and then after that, it's 2 games a week with some Europa League games in there at some point. So do you? If this was another team, would we be saying this? Like, for example, if what we saw in the last 3 games is our starters for the rest of, is basically the baseline, most of them anyways, for our starters for the rest of the season, would they not play in this game? You've had a whole week off, right? If this was like a Liverpool, Manchester City, would they rotate after a week off and then another big gap?
Yeah, those players will be on the bench, Gary.
They'll be on the bench for this one?
Yeah, some of our young players will probably be on the bench.
As one of them says, right, you've got to keep your players motivated, which is why I'm going to go now to Sam, right, because I've seen him yawning.
I've been yawning.
He's laughing at me.
It's lies, I tell you.
He's going to shut me up now.
What time is it there now in Norway?
4:15 in the morning.
4:15 in the morning. So first of all, fair play for
dedicated gooner
on our timeline. So what would you do against? What would you put out against Newcastle? Are you putting anyone in, or?
I put out the strongest possible lineup.
Lineup was last weekend.
Because they've had a week to rest. They're going to have a nice rest afterwards. What are you resting for? What? They're young players. Unless they've got something close to an injury or something like that. They're struggling. There's something, the muscular issue or whatever like that. Okay. You want to rest them. You don't want to injure them. As long as
someone like a Cedric for you, he's not going to get into just to have a run out. Someone like Cedric.
But this is the FA Cup third round now. If we were playing Lincoln Town or Shrewsbury or Wrexham or something like that, right? You'd take a chance and rest a few players. But we're playing Newcastle, right? I mean, they're a Premier League team. Steve Bruce is going to come, wanting to beat us. So we've got to take it seriously. It's a cup we can win. It's an important. I think it's still an important cup for fans. We definitely saw that winning it last season. We've got to take it seriously. It's not a competition we shouldn't be taking seriously. I know traditionally we play our second goalkeeper, but there's no way we can do that now. No way we can do that now. Leno's got to stay in. There's no way we're playing Runarsson in the FA Cup. So
Runarsson.
Yeah, exactly. Runarsson. Computer says no. Right. So keep him out. Let Leno play, and we have the strongest possible lineup play because unless there's a risk of injury, play them because what are you resting them for? We don't have a game, shortly before or after. They've had enough rest before. They'll have enough rest after. Why not?
Right, but you don't want to just a bit of rotation, just to someone like maybe.
No, because it's a game I want to win. It's a game. It's the FA Cup third round. We're playing Newcastle, right? Again, I would take more of a chance if we were playing a lower, championship side or lower down the divisions. Of course, you would take that risk. But playing against Newcastle in a competition we want to win, I would guess it's our maybe third priority. Well, forget the league, so it's going to be our second priority, right? Our first priority is to win the Europa League. Then our second priority is going to be to win the FA Cup. If you want to win FA Cup.
Okay. Well, all right, Sam. I was only fucking asking, mate. You know what I
Rohan, what are you going to put out against Newcastle?
First of all,
I would.
Okay, go ahead.
Rohan, I'm coming to you. Rohan.
I would rotate.
Hey, how do you do this shit every fucking week, right?
Alonzo,
Huh? How do you do it every week? Jesus, it's like a class of naughty children. Right, Rohan.
I'd rotate a little bit. Not Leno. Leno's got to play. But apart from him, I think Keeney's got to get a rest. Bellerin probably should be out of the squad. Our centre backs. Murray's just come in and he's played so many games. He could get a rest unless Arteta thinks that Gabriel is going to fit in and Murray's got to go out. Then Murray can play and Gabriel comes in. Holding probably needs a rest. El Neni has got to play. Maitland-Niles has got to play. I would even play Willock for that matter. Nelson, Balogun if we can see him. Otherwise, if you can't see him, I would right now. I'd even play Aubameyang here and then rest him in the Crystal Palace game. Pepe's got to play. All of these guys on the fringes have got to play.
Question for you, Mark. Do you put Aubameyang in the middle?
Don't mention Aubameyang.
Whenever he plays, it doesn't matter. It's the FA Cup game where he can probably I would like to see him play on the left and Balogun up front or Eddie up front. One of the two. Lacazette is in form, so I want to give him rest. Because importantly, of course, we don't have a match for the next couple of days. Well, we have a match on Thursday, Saturday, then Thursday, 5-day break. But over the next 19 days, we're going to play 5 matches. 5 matches in the Premier League that we're playing in the next 19 days. So we'll play, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Southampton, United, Wolves, and then Aston Villa on the 6th of February. So which is going to be our 6th game in about 21, 22 days. So that time, I don't want us to use the fatigue, sort of thing. Get these guys a spa day on that day, something like that. They get them out of the team. Because in the Premier League, every week, I want to see every game week, I want to see the strongest squad, no question of, them being lethargic or them being fatigued, all of that. These 6 games can turn around our season and we could be in the hunt for top 4. Who knows, right? Like if we could turn it around then. And, another good thing is that we're going to be playing Newcastle again in between sandwiched is Crystal Palace. So we play Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Newcastle. Give the second team a shot and then give our first team a shot against Newcastle again and see what comes out of it. Because effectively you're playing the same team, right? You're playing the same manager. There couldn't be more parity in making a decision as to who plays.
If you're a manager and new to the game and you're trying to work out what you've got, those 2 games, that's what you do. That's a very good, a very, very good point, to be fair. Now, so that's also right, because we've got about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to try and squeeze in this last bit, and I want to squeeze it in and start with Lonnie. Looking at our first team, if we're going to put out a team in the league, with the players that we've got available to us now, I want to know who our best midfield is. And let's say we're playing with a midfield 3, right? So if everybody's fit, who are you putting out as our midfield 3, Alonzo, in our first team?
Honestly, I would put down Partey, Maitland-Niles, and Emile Smith-Rowe.
That's a strong midfield.
Because what I have issue with Arteta is that he doesn't know whether Maitland-Niles is a good midfielder or a right back, right? I want to see him at his strengths rather in midfield to see what they could do together, him and Partey, right? And I think it's exciting because he knows Emile Smith-Rowe in his strengths. So it's going to make him better, or both of them better. So why not give it a go and see what they could do together, and him and Partey, you know. So I want to see that combination work out at least once this year.
All right, let's move upstairs to Ray. If you're going to put out a midfield, what's our strongest midfield in your eyes?
You know, I agree with Alonzo said. I would with Ainsley Maitland-Niles in there. I like that what he did there, but Arteta doesn't seem to want to go down that road. So I would keep Partey and Emile Smith-Rowe as the creative player, and I would probably anchor Partey with Granit Xhaka.
Okay.
Probably Granit Xhaka. That's where we are. That's where we are right now, Gary. That is our midfield.
That's not the question. He didn't ask you who Arteta, crazy mad scientist, is going to choose. He said, "Who is our best midfield?"
I like what Alonso said. I like what Ainsley Maitland-Niles did in the Europa League in midfield. So I would go with what Alonso said: Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Partey, and Emile Smith-Rowe. Sorry, Gary. Apologies.
Gary, who would you go with?
Yeah, I mean, I for some reason I had forgotten about Mainsley because when I was thinking about this, I had Partey and Emile Smith-Rowe in there, but then I was like, who else would I put? And Emile Smith-Rowe, I'm sorry, Maitland out there on the right seems like I mean, I don't know where else we would go with it. I feel like that would be the best one for us. I mean, I'm going to stick with what Alonso chose. I mean, I do like that threesome there. I mean, the problem I guess we know is that Maitland hasn't had enough time. We need to see him play a lot more, see if he can get used to it. If we're going to play with three in the middle, I mean, I think that would be, if we went with three, I think I'd like that idea.
Sam?
I agree. I think those three at the moment are probably my favourite three. Partey, of course, I don't think we need to discuss more about him, but Maitland-Niles, I just think looks really dynamic in that midfield role. I would love to see him in like a box-to-box role next to Partey, because I think he has that dynamism and that ability to drive with the ball. He looked really good in the Europa League in that position. So I'd like to see him given a chance, because when you have Partey, for me, you don't need a Xhaka or an El Neni when you have a Partey, because for me, Partey is covering those roles. He's good enough to cover those roles. You can have someone next to him who's going to be more dynamic, go forward a bit more, and link up more with Emile Smith-Rowe and the other players in attack. So, so for me, I'd like to see Maitland-Niles given that chance. And of course, at the moment, you can't really choose anyone else but Smith-Rowe because of what he's shown so far.
Tony, we're just going over if you're playing in the formation that we're currently playing with three in midfield, in your opinion, who would you put out and who's our best three in the midfield?
Partey, Smith-Rowe, and Martinelli.
Martinelli?
Yep.
Okay. Where's he playing?
Left. On the left.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
Left of the three.
But you can still have, if you look at the formation that we've been playing, you can still have the two wide midfielders, but you can still have three in there, right? Because he's kind of playing 4-2-3-1.
Yep.
So if you're looking at that formation, you could have Martinelli in there, but who would you have as your three? Who would you have as the two and then that one? So you've got the two sat in front of the defence and then one ahead. Who would you go?
Oh, that way, then I do Partey, then Emmy up front. I don't know who beside Partey.
Okay. If I'm not asked, Lonnie, I've asked Lonnie, and I've asked Lonnie. Rohan.
Unmute.
Yeah. So I would change it up. Depending on how, again, not bring back Partey before he's completely fit. You don't want him out again. So if that means that you don't start him and you just give him 15-20 minutes at the end, I'd rather do that. if he's fit to play and he needs some match fitness, then I start him. So let's say he needs some match fitness, I'll play him for like 50, 55 minutes. So Partey, beside him, Elneny, because Elneny I don't think should start in the Crystal Palace game. And ahead of him, ahead of him, I'd maybe even play Willock, really. Willock could play there. Or if you don't want to play Elneny and he's played enough, then I play Partey. Next to him, I play AMN, and ahead of him, I play Willock, and then I sub off Elneny for Partey and give him a few minutes. I don't want to overstress Smith Rowe because he has a history of soft tissue injuries, right? And the next few games are going to be crucial, so we have to manage his time. He's played 3 games in like 8 days now, and he's had a bit of a break, but I don't want to cost him, lose him through injury. So make those changes. Have a strong bench. What I would say is have a strong bench in case the game is not going for us. If it's close, you think that we need a backup, then you have a strong bench. But starting wise, I think this should be good enough, right? Like a midfield of, let's say, Partey, AMN, and Willock with Pepe on one side, Aubameyang on the other side, and Balogun or Nketiah up top. I think that's a solid midfield and front line.
Okay. Is there anyone on the panel that, because with all these squares moving around, I can't remember where I am now. So is there anyone that I've not asked about this? No? Okay, well, for me, mine's quite different to all of yours, but I'm probably on the same wavelength as Kevin Mark in the chat box. Well, I would have in this formation myself, I would go with Partey and Elneny as the 2 deeper ones. And in this Emil Smith Rowe, I'd like to have Saka there. I'd like Saka and Emil Smith Rowe to be sharing that role. Obviously, because of, like you say, soft. Emil Smith Rowe's made out of fucking Andrex and can't go too long. So those 2 in that role, I'd like to see that personally. I've always felt that Saka could really do something good for us in the Emil Smith Rowe, and I've said it a few times. He's got something about him, his build and what I think he can do. He reminds me of Clarence Seedorf, Saka. He's good wide, but I think he could do a lot of stuff for us in the middle. So, last business before we clock out. If anyone's got anything that they want a final word, end of business, let's go round now. Gary? I want to try shit. We're finishing dead on 2 hours, man.
Oh yeah, I hear you. No, I'm looking forward to the next game. Like I said, I like to see the youth play again, so the youngsters play again. I feel like they bring a lot to the table. Maybe some of the other players have seen how they've played, and they come out of their shell, and they come out and they perform like we'd like to see them. That's the one thing that we haven't seen. Somebody come in, showcase what they can do, and then the next player comes in and tries to better them. There's that sportsmanship that you like to see. I like to see it come out in some of these players. Pepe, for one, we know he's got something in there, and we've seen it. We've seen players come in and take his spot and show how it should be played. Does he come out and have a good game? I would like to see it.
Now, we weren't going to finish on time, but Ray, whose channel it is, obviously, he's pulled me up, and there is another topic, and it's a topic that Sam submitted. Sam, I apologise. I apologise, mate.
Don't worry about it, mate. It's fine.
It's a very good topic as well, and it's how different modern day fans are, and the way social media and modern media communication has changed them. And before we lead into that, I like this question because I retweeted something just a couple of days ago, and it really plays into exactly this question. And I've got it right here, actually. Here we go. And I want to read this out word for word. And this was from yesterday, and someone tweeted this out. Not only did at Arsenal lose #Ozil, but they also lost a fan. I have signed a new deal with at LFC. They are paying me with no emotional distress, and they also won't remove at Mo Salah, my second favourite footballer. I had a great time, Arsenal. I'm sad this day has come. So I kind of feel that the question that you raised, Sam, it kind of really dovetails with that tweet, right? So it's your question and it's your thoughts. So what prompted you to come to think about this?
Well, it was the whole, Ray said, we was going to each have like a little segment to talk about our thing we wanted to talk about, and that was the thing I wanted to talk about. It's something I could really talk about for a long time. I think it could probably be an entire debate in itself. Unfortunately, we're doing it, and it's listen. I understand we've had a great podcast and everything. Just saying it's probably the 2-hour mark is probably a bit late to start it now for most people. Probably getting a bit tired now, but because we could really go on for a long time on this one. But
listen, mate, don't worry. I don't have much of a life outside of it.
It's because to really do it justice, I think we could probably make it a real point of discussion in another podcast. But I'll just give it a couple of minutes. And the thing is, for me, it's something I've really sort of noticed so much as a fan. Growing up, growing up now. I mean, not growing. I am growing up now, unfortunately. But I think back. It wasn't long ago when it just seemed like the fan base was more united. Before the whole introduction of social media and this, the so-called modern communication, the internet age, where everything goes online and then the introduction of social media in the middle of the 2000s.
Do you think we know too much?
I think it's just the fact that we can now, any person can just say what they want to anyone online, and it goes, right? It flies, it goes, and then it'll either gain traction or it won't. But it's now everyone's got their own feelings, their own meanings. And they get together in bands, and this whole social media interaction now. You see what it's done as a fan base. It splits us on everything because now everything's become so. Are you for it? Are you against it? It's all this tribalism. It puts everyone into categories, and it just creates animosity and so much disagreement. And you see it becomes so much more prevalent. With the introduction of social media, because I remember when I was younger and I went to Arsenal games and I was around. I mean, yeah, of course, you always had discussions in pubs and with your friends or whatever, of course. But it wasn't that toxic, that real toxic. Are you for this player? Are you against him? Are you for this? Are you against that? It's just become so prevalent and toxic now with social media and the whole. But the main point I wanted to raise, not just how our fans now interact with each other in a much more abrasive and sort of, I would say, more disrespectful manner. It's all this whole thing now where the way we approach the game and players, because now it's just, you see this knee-jerk reaction for everything now. If a player has one bad game, it's like, oh, sell him, get rid of him, he's shit, And then the next game, he'll be amazing. It's like, oh wow, no, it was great. He's going to be a legend.
Let me ask you a question, and I'm playing this purely devil's advocate, Sam.
Yeah, sure, yeah, sure.
Is it? I mean, you and I are probably kind of cut from a similar piece of cloth in our background, UK, probably round about the sort of same age, and I'm sure you're like me. You remember that when we used to find out about Arsenal signing players. If it wasn't the back page of the newspaper, it was CFAX or Oracle.
Exactly.
No, that was it. And
you followed sports and newspapers, right? That's what you did.
And then, like you say, there were chats down the pub and maybe on the terraces or what have you. And I'm purely playing devil's advocate. Some of the scrutiny now that goes into supporting a football club, whether it's how the finances are distributed or what this player is doing or what this player isn't doing. Is there an argument to say that a platform such as this is kind of in some way playing its part, whether it's this platform, whether it's Arsblog, whether it's this channel, that channel, or what have you? Because we are now, I mean, someone said to me the other day, you know, I've got to be in my bonnet about Mesut Ozil, as we all know, right? And someone said to me, Stan, why are you so concerned about how he's getting paid? You know, we never used to know about this kind of thing and it never bothered us. But my answer was, well, back then we never had someone like a Swiss Ramble who would go in there, deep dive, break it all down, and then come to us as supporters and say, this is how the money's being distributed. It's now in our domain, right?
Yeah, it's the information age, right? It's the information age, and it's that instantaneous information, and you know, we do get all the deep information we didn't get before, right? We're getting more information, we're getting it quicker, instantaneously, and it creates a lot of discussion, and it creates this disharmony. You know, it's either something you like or you dislike, and the internet is giving everyone. It's like I say, I mean, for me, I think it's to the detriment, really, of society as a whole. I mean, that's a whole different discussion. But, I mean, when you give everyone a license to say what they want, and we've created, again, I don't want to, listen, I just want to mention this one time. I don't want a whole discussion. I don't want to go into politics. But it's in my opinion, it's thanks to, the internet, this whole internet social media age that's created this whole modern society now where you have people who no longer believe in the truth. 2 + 2 is no longer 4. 1 + 1 is no longer 2, because you have people who just make things up, put it out on the internet, and then you have people who will follow that because that's what they want to follow, and then that becomes a new truth, a so-called alternate fact or alternative truth. And that to me is just absolutely, I can't get around that as someone who tries to think logically about things. And this is something that spills into sports as well, where now you have brands, right? People are Instagram, players are brands, the big players are brands. So, you've got now, fans who follow a player like you just brilliantly highlighted there with that tweet, Stan. You've got someone who obviously just follows Ozil, not really that much Arsenal, and now he's going to go on to Liverpool and follow Salah, right? So, the players, players have their own fan bases now instead of the teams.
Is this like a modern age of the new football fan? This is something that we've never.
Yeah, it's changing. Right? If the younger generations now, this is something that's much more prevalent with the young generations who grew up with social media now. The kids who are born in 2000, 2001, 2002. Growing up with social media, from a young age, this is it now. That is in your whole sense of being. So you're into brands, you're into everything that goes onto social media. It puts you into categories, it puts you into that group, it puts you into that group, and it's something that's really affected us fans. And for me, it's mostly you see it with how we react to players, performances. Everything now is just so knee jerk. It's like, oh, you got to get rid of him. Instead of before, it was like, oh, he wasn't really good, and you don't really talk about. You didn't talk about a player not being good enough until you gave him.
Like the other week when Xhaka scores that free kick, and I go, I haven't got like Xhaka.
Exactly. I mean, before, of course, you would see if a player wasn't great, but you wouldn't say, oh, he's got to go, you got to sell him. Blah, blah. You give someone a chance because you wouldn't really have that reaction in front of you, as you see now with people, fans, just reacting straight away to every negative event that happens without putting anything into context. That whole idea and realm of context just disappears with social media because everything's here now, reactionary now, and you see it with managers as well. Look at this whole debacle we've had with Solskjaer. I mean, the fact that United fans, every week it was in, out, Ole at the wheel, Ole at the wheel, Ole's lost the control of the wheel, and in, out, shake it all about. It was the fucking hokey cokey every week.
Oh gosh.
And it's just, this is what it's become, and it's so, it's divisive. It's toxic. And look at us as Arsenal, our fan base. We're so fragmented in so many different ways, right? And it's because of social media. It puts us all into these groups, and we have to. Oh, we're in these groups, and I have to defend that group. I don't want to change my mind. I want to defend the group I'm in. You know, it creates this whole tribalism culture as well. Because us humans, you know, we have a big problem with the way we actually function as human beings. And we don't go well together with social media. We really don't. We're not wired to work with social media, and that's what I want to say. I don't want to turn into a whole. I could talk about this for an hour. So just that's just an introduction, and we can maybe talk about it another time. But
when you just said that I could talk about this for an hour, my missus off camera just raised her eyebrow. So
yeah, I just want to say one final thing, and that is, I think just to conclude what I wanted to say, just as a conclusion. That, in my opinion, social media and this modern, instantaneous information age we are in has made fans more reactionary, less patient, and we demand more quickly than what is maybe realistic in most scenarios. We might demand more quickly from a player than what's realistic to expect from younger players. We're expecting younger players to perform at an extremely high level very quickly. We're not giving them the chance, I think, because we expect things to happen quickly because of how social media in our modern age works. And I just think that combination is not good. We expect too much too quickly is my point.
Yeah. So everyone that's listening on the replay, everyone that's in there now, please go to Twitter and unfollow Sam, because
listen, sure,
it's not a good thing. It's not, let's help the guy. I'm joking, obviously. Some very good points there, Sam, actually. Is there anyone else on the panel that wants to kind of piggyback onto what Sam's saying about social media, the way our fans are, the kind of information now that's so freely accessible to us as fans?
Yeah, I like to add on that. I think that it all started with banger out, banger in kind of thing, where he was just stuck in the middle. And whenever he was losing a string of games or didn't get the information right, then, the fans would always jump on him. And then the ones that were loyal to him were the ones that say, hey, listen, he's on a tight budget every year. He got us the top 4. He won us FA Cups towards the end. And there's no winning with that. So it caused a lot of friction with us. And, one thing that we want to talk about with fans, younger fans, is that they support a player now. Well, how about fantasy football? I think fantasy has also taken away from the level of the club. And you see it here, especially in American sports, where you have fantasy football, American football, you have fantasy basketball, and fantasy baseball. So it all intertwines with what Sam is trying to get at, is that there's no love for a team anymore. It's all about players and who they support as players. And Sam is right that some players are so big that they're now brands now, and it's kind of sad to see from an American aspect of how point of view, rather.
It's all about clicks and not about unity anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a different landscape now. It's a different kind of a fan, I suppose, because the fan's been exposed to the club and the players in a much different way than a lot of us on this panel were. How we started supporting teams when we were younger. Anyone else on the panel want to come in on this subject before we wrap up?
Yeah. So my view on this is that the issue is that social media itself is an echo chamber, right? Like you sort of get information for things that you believe. It's not that the information that I get, I'm going to base my opinion on that. My opinion is my opinion, and I'm going to find facts that back up my opinion. That's what social media is now. So that is what the problem is. The problem is not the availability of information, but our ability to sort of segregate what is the real material information from what is BS, and what is conspiracy theories, and what is artificial, etc. And that has become the problem, because now any person, nobody wants to be called out as being wrong. So everybody has access to as much information as they want, and everybody has, you just go onto Google and you type, the Earth is flat, or no one ever landed on the moon, and you're gonna get enough, evidence for you to back it up in an argument on the internet, right? Like, so that's the basic phenomenon that we're talking about, that social media has created, and that's not social media's problem. Now we've got access to that, and we have to use it wisely. But what people use it for is, of course, it's also entertainment. Some people want to see the world burn, right? Like they want to, stir people up. They want to have views, and they want to create content. And the way to do it is creating controversy or saying something that's unpopular, a hot take, and likes, dislikes, things like that, retweets. So all of this is messing with people, and we've gone away from, what it was just analyzing football just for the merits of that 90 minutes. Now it's become so much more, and that is, that's where social media has taken us. But social media has also brought so many new fans, right? Now there's a fan in Vietnam who's supporting, whoever, like Liverpool, and there's a fan in Uzbekistan who's supporting Arsenal or someone, right? So but why do they have any loyalty? They have loyalties because they've seen maybe some player from their country plays there, maybe some player that they like, maybe they like the color of the jersey or something. So you can't expect them to be super loyal like fans were back in the day, because they were born in that local community, or their dad supported it and their granddad supported it, So, nobody wants the pain of being an Arsenal fan. I just put myself out there so much on social media that I can't change now. But, if I had the opportunity, I would resign from being an Arsenal fan and sign up with at LFC, because that's the way to go. But,
I'd love to be able to sometimes just check out of Arsenal, but it don't work like that. Do you know what I mean? I've made that. I'm fucking saddled with them now. Come good or bad, It's just the way it's gonna be,
It's our Cosa Nostra, isn't it? It's the mafia. That's it. You're in now.
We're all made men. We're into the end, And I retweeted that tweet that I read out. I retweeted it, and I just said, "Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, love."
Exactly. But it was that was the quintessential social media fan tweet, wasn't it?
Yeah. So look,
I guess if I can have a little say, I think this is kind of, as I said, kind of the sign of the times. As I recall, back when I was very, very young in England, we had 3 channels. There were 3 buttons on the TV. You hit BBC One, BBC Two, and I can't remember what the third one was.
ITV.
But that's all you had, right?
Yeah.
And if you were watching sports, if you were a kid like me, if sports came on, you only got whatever game was on. That's the one you watched, right? Yeah.
So
you came on, you were happy about that.
Or Dickie Davis on the World of Sport with his wife. You remember that stand, didn't you?
Yeah. So I think that kind of fan, if the fans today had those restrictions, they wouldn't know what to do with themselves. I mean, think about it now. There's so many options now, right? So many options now. They can choose to follow the team if they want, follow a player if they want, follow a coach. I mean, my dad's even said it. He said, I think it's which coach it was, if Harry Redknapp or not, but he likes that coach more than anything, and no matter where he goes, he's going to like him. Those are the things that are going on right now, as opposed to, I like following a team because it's almost like a marriage. It's the good and the bad, right? You never know. The goods are really good. The bads in the sports could be really, really bad, right?
I almost got a divorce about a month ago, Gary.
You got to take the highs and the lows in these things, because I think. Well, you can always, like right now, a lot of fans, the real fans, right? The real fans, they can always look back and go, you know what? I saw us really bad and I saw us really good. This just happens to be one of those kind of times right now. Not as bad as it could have been, but we're kind of hopefully changing. So, and that's the part, when we talk about fans, that's the kind of fandom I like, is that, we're we're all upset at the same things because we see our team lose, and we're all happy as can be when we win. I mean, when we won the FA Cup, I don't think there was any Arsenal fan that was upset about that. You know, had anything bad to say. They were enjoying that, and that's what we want, right? And we want to relive that again and again and again. But some people don't want to do that. But you know what? Those aren't the real fans, as we call them, right? So that's where we are, and that's kind of, you know, social media allows you to do that, pick and choose what you want.
Just the phrase is plastic, right?
Plastic, yes, definitely. Yeah, it's not real for sure. That's where we are, right? I mean, that's where we are. I mean, it's a good topic, Sam. I do like that one because it is the sign of the times. I mean, that's why we say things. You know, the fan base is so segmented, right? Because some of us are living through. You know, they're okay. We can live through this pain because we know there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, it may not happen year, but it will happen, right? Eventually, if you stay with your team. And those are the times you look back and go, you know what? I remember like back in 2000 at the end of the year, we were just terrible. Our coach was about to lose, and then like come, you know, a year from now, 2022, we're like laughing, right? Because we're like, you know, things have turned around, and you were there for that growth. It's hard to be a real fan and not go through these ups and downs. I don't know how you can do that. You know, it's your team through thick and thin, right? The good times and the bad times. You know what? I don't think we're necessarily that bad because we've seen glimpses, right? We just need to see them more. That's all. We just want more.
There's a great comment in there from Football with Brownie over there in Spain. Another one who's up late, man, because I know it's got to be late over there where he is.
It's the same time as me. Yeah.
Exactly. So he says modern club fans are like Formula One fans, where they follow the driver rather than the team. And I think that's a very good point. You know, if you're a Max Verstappen fan or a Lewis Hamilton fan, and Lewis Hamilton moves from Mercedes and goes to Ferrari, that's usually where the fans are going to go, right? They don't stick with the team; it's the individual driver, and I think that's a very good point. And it's time now. We've been doing this for 2 hours and 22 minutes, right? And it's time to wrap this shit up. So I am telling out exactly how I started this because I'm off now with my Mesut Ozil leaving party. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone on the panel for helping me out tonight. I really enjoyed the hosting. I want to say a big thank you to everybody that came into the chat box and contributed to the show. You were like the 12th man. And everybody that's going to be listening to this on replay, I'm now off to raise a glass of sherry.
Hi, folks.
Good job, Sam.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Hey guys.
Good night.
Thank you.